Navia, also known as Taylor Swift. I need to talk about my sexual. Wrong moment. Anyways, back to our main star. Navia is a 5-star Geo Claymore character. She is the breath of fresh air for the Geo character roster, being the girly pop with unique gameplay. Now, before I actually begin this guide, let me just say I had reservations about Navia before she arrived. In fact, I admit that upon release, I was not going to pull for her for the simple fact that she is Geo. The only team Geo has run in the past is Mono Geo, and it is simply such an ick for me. Mono Geo, not free-to-play friendly at all, and I am not rich. Things happen, and one late night, Navia comes home, and I was completely caught off guard with her gameplay. Navia's gameplay in kits, well, Navia plays the reaction people have thrown to the sidelines, Crystallize. Crystallize is a reaction that occurs when the Geo element interacts with Cryo, Electro, Hydro, or Pyro. This reaction forms a protective crystal shield that can absorb any damage heading your way. But what if I said that instead of Crystallize being used as a makeshift shield, it can instead, with Navia, be used as a way to charge up her attacks? Deal damage. Let's get into it. Upon using your Navia's burst, you will begin creating crystallized shards that she then sucks up if you hold down her skill. Once you see those 3 bullets on the side light up, she is ready to release big damage. Before that, after using her burst, you will find that Navia's weapon becomes infused with Geo, meaning she can create more shards for herself. That's the gist of her gameplay as far as combat goes. Moving on to her kit in detail to make the most of your Navia. From her burst, Navia summons cannons, or what in lore is known as Rasula Dorada Salute, which unleashes AoE Geo damage through the cannon fire. This cannon fire continues as a port for a duration to create shards. The frequency of these shards created through her bursts are 1 stack for every 2.4 seconds. Keep that in mind, of course. Next up is her skill known as the Ceremonial Crystal Shot, which is a dope name. The great thing about Navia is that she isn't the one that has to be on field to pick up the shards. Navia will gain a stack of the crystallized shards if another character in the party picks it up. The total stacks are 6 at once. For firing the crystallized shards, you'll be reset back to 0. As the stacks are, of course, used to fire her Gunbrella. This, in fact, deals even more Geo damage. Next up is her skill known as the Ceremonial Crystal Shot, which is a dope name. The great thing about Navia is that she isn't the one that has to be on field to pick up the shards. Navia will gain a stack of the crystallized shards if another character in the party picks it up. The total stacks are, of course, 6 at once. For firing the crystal shards, you'll be reset back to 0 as they are used to fire her Gunbrella. This, in fact, deals even more Geo damage. Going a bit more into the details, the more shots fired at a single opponent, the greater damage dealt to them. And when all 11 shots strike, 200% of the original damage is dealt. That's pretty great. To make what I'm going to say process easier, I'll be putting on your screen the amount of stacks equal to how many bullets. Every leftover stack will be used to buff her skill damage by 15%. Now, I can talk about all this, but what is Navia if we don't talk about her passives? Navia's passives are interesting to say the least. Navia's A4 passive has her gaining a 20% attack buff for every ally on your team that is Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro, stacking up to 40% extra. In other words, Navia will always want 2 characters of those elements on her team. Constellations. For those people who really love Navia or have got the funds, you scare me. Here are her constellations explained. Navia's first constellation gives her up to 9 extra energy when she uses her skill, 3 per crystal shrapnel consumed. Her burst is reduced to a 3-second cooldown, 1 second per crystal shrapnel consumed. All this really does is have Navia keep her ult up more, meaning she'll have more crystal to play with. And I said it like that, and I'm thinking about other things. Oops. C2 Navia has her elemental skill, 12% extra crit rate for every crystal she uses. This caps at a total of 36%. Additionally, every time she uses a skill, a cannonball from her burst will come down and do elemental burst damage. All that C2 does is granting you leniency in how you wish to build your Navia, since the bulk of her damage comes from her elemental skill damage, meaning you won't need as much crit rate. Thus, if played correctly, you can build more crit damage on her instead. Skipping on to C4. C4 reduces the geo res of any enemy hit by Navia's burst by 20%. More damage. Woo! C6 raises elemental skill crit damage by 15% for every crystal shrapnel consumed, capped at a total of 45%, and every crystal shrapnel consumed by the skill beyond the third will be returned to Navia. That being, of course, 4, 5, and 6. This constellation is obviously the best, as she has higher skill crit damage by up to 45%, but the fact that some of the stacks consumed are returned, she would be able to use her skills at max stacks more often. Talent priority? Well, you'll want to upgrade her skill and then burst. Her normal attacks are completely up to how you wish to play your Navia. If she's your main DPS, you should definitely upgrade it to whatever you're comfortable. If not, well, you can always save your materials for something else. But what is all this without a weapon? Weapons. Navia has many options for her weapons, but her best is going to be her signature. Navia's signature offers crit rate substats, helping with Navia's crit ratio. The passive also gives Navia more attack and raises her next elemental skill damage whenever a party member does collect a shard. For those who spend a little bit of money on Genshin and you've bought the battle pass or are considering it, you can of course run the Serpent Spine, and at R5 it does get quite close to her signature. At R1, the Beacon of the Red Sea is good alongside the Red Horn Stone Thresher. If your Navia remains shielded, she can benefit from the Unforged, though using the weapon will require some thinking. Your next option is Wolf's Greystone, Skyward Pride, and Song of Broken Pines. For the free-to-plays, the Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword is good. It'll give you a grid high base attack totaling at 565 and 30.6% extra energy recharge. The good news is, if you did the event, it should be at R5, so the substat should give you an extra 48% attack. Let's talk about that, though. To get the maximum attack means you'll have to actually play those world quests you all tend to avoid, because it's based off how many Melazines you've actually helped. And it was only until this Sword King round that I actually helped the Melazines. The next weapon I'm going to mention only works in select circumstances. The Sacrificial Greatsword gives you good energy recharge, has great base attack, and will give you extra particles. Only way you're going to make this work for your Navia is to be running without a Geo character alongside her, but that isn't really recommended, but to each their own. You've got the weapon? Well, artifacts. Navia is a very special girly pop that Hoyoverse decided to give her her own artifact set with her specific color palette, and as far as I'm aware, no one else runs this set. This set is known as Nighttime Whispers in the Echoing Woods set, which is a bit of a mouthful. This set offers Navia at a 2-piece an extra 18% attack. The 4-piece offers an extra 20% geo damage bonus for 10 seconds after using her elemental skill. Bonus, if Navia is in a crystallized shield, that will boost the effect by 150%, and this additional increase disappears 1 second after the shield is lost. This all perfectly aligns with Navia's kit, and if you love damage, you'll definitely want to farm this set for her. Navia is a delightful character, and you're gonna need attack percent because she scales off attack, crit rate to crit damage, and of course, energy recharge. Can't go wrong with it. You'll want about 170 to reliably burst because her burst is very important. So try to grab onto that energy recharge as much as you can. Alright, well, my main assumption is that you'll be running Navia as a team for double Geo. Well, you'll want 120 to 140 ER, 110 to 120. If you have high energy generation, 140 to 150 if you have low ER. Alright, there are alternatives for those who are a bit lazy like me at times. For players who cling to their Farina, you can obviously use the Mara Juicy Hunter set. Navia benefits from the 2-piece or just going for the full set. I mean, it offers crit rates universal. Your next available options are using Archaic Petra and Gladiator's Final for their 2-piece. Another option for Navia can be the Golden Troop set, though this would be for a switch-in based Navia team, which would be acting more like a sub-DPS instead of the main DPS. In the time of crisis building, you can always just mix any 2-piece set that offers attack bonus, choosing them solely based off which one has better substats. Teams. All right, my favorite. The teams available for Navia in general must have at least one other Geo character and 2 characters of the Hydro, Electro, Pyro, and Cryo element. In case somehow you forgot, this is a quick reminder that Navia gains a 50% attack boost with teammates having those elements. Navia will also, of course, benefit from having an attack buffer on her team as well. Due to the way Navia is played optimally, you'll want party members that can apply elemental damage off field / elemental application. And for comfiness, you'll obviously want a healer. Keep in mind that the following teams I'm going to mention are made with the assumption you run Zhongli in each. First on team is the best, my go-to, Navia, Zhongli, Bennett, and Xialing. In total honesty though, as long as you have one Geo character to proctor more crystallized reactions, you can run anyone in the next 2 spots with Navia. For instance, another team possible is Navia, Zhongli, Bennett, and Fischl. In a weird and unexpected route, you can play Navia Vape, which is not something I thought I'd say. That team would be Navia, Zhongli, Xialing, and Xingqiu. There's Taser, which is a complete girly team with Yelan and Fischl. Of course, though, that means no Zhongli, but you should be playing with him. Honorary mention, a Navia team with Farina. In order for this team to work, you will have to run Navia with Bennett, so that in some form you get healing to get the fanfare stacks from Farina. Or what you can do is make Farina the healer, though you do lose some DPS doing that. You can run just about any Geo character in replacement of Zhongli. However, that limits you to having to run Bennett, which is still the best option, as not having a Bennett in your team is a considerable DPS loss. That covers everything you need to have your Navia kick the abyss's booty cheeks. Jokes aside, Navia will pleasantly surprise you. As someone who hates claymores, I love Navia. If you want to see more content from me, there's always this magical button known as the subscribe button, and maybe turn on those notifications if you're feeling nice. In the meantime, there's always socials in the description if you ever want to find me. Toodles!